All right, so here we have a really simple hello world. Now, notice if you find this syntax somewhat disturbing, I agree. So preferably, you would have a function declared elsewhere, an actual function, maybe say hello. Okay, and you would instead implement it. You would have an actual implementation of this function elsewhere, like that, right? And instead, you would then reference that name of the function here, say hello, right? So this would be an easier way to read the same exact thing, right? It make a little more sense, and perhaps even move all these functions to some reusable modular piece of code, right? So if we restart the server, this should be the same. So we run it. If we come back and refresh, still there. Everybody okay? All right. So yeah. The other thing that I'm going to ask you to do is do not start your servers from the command line. Right? Instead, make sure to whatever IDE you're using, right, that you have configured running configuration, run configuration. So in this case, we'll do Node.js. We'll call it, this is the server, and it's in that directory, yep, and I'm running the server.js file. We'll say OK. And this creates for you a run configuration that you can run from here, but you can also do a break. See that? So it allows you to debug. If you come to the TAs and you're using Node server with questions, it means that you have not been debugging this at all. Right, and that you haven't been being diligent about making sure finding problems on your own source code yourselves. So make sure that you have a running configuration. You can put a breakpoint, and you can run it in debug mode. And if you refresh, notice that it jumps to my code, and you can step through the code and see what's coming in. Everybody okay? All right, make sure that you have this configured correctly. All right, let's see. OK, so let's keep going. Let's do a couple of things that we know how to already do in Java. We would like to be able to say, for instance, I'd like to be able to receive arguments as part of the URL. For instance, it could be hello, and this could be user, hello user, right, as an argument. I would like to be able to use that and parse that parameter that is part of the path. So it's path parameters, right? Just like we can do in Java. So we wanted to be able to do the same thing. So we can retrieve that information. So we can say constant user. We can retrieve from the request params. So params is a map that the request framework, the HTTP, the Express parses the request. It parses the URL, the actual URL that's coming in, and it creates for me a map with these being the keys of the map and the available in the map params. The map is called params, and those are the keys. This user is now a key into that map, and the value is whatever I actually typed in there for that user. Make sense? So now this hello world, I can use this user as part of the response. Okay, so if I restart, and notice that if I try to go there, notice that there is no hello anymore. There's nothing mapped to that dash hello. Instead, I have to say hello Alice. All right, so now that's mapped, or Ada, and then that's that. I'm retrieving that. Okay, I can also pass query parameters, as in part of a question mark. I might say that I want to send you a message. Hello there. Notice that right now it's being ignored, right? So I can retrieve it. Unfortunately, it's not as obvious as something like this, where you would actually create the URL pattern and we would be mapped from the URL pattern. It would be nice if this would be message equal message, right? And then somehow you can then access that. Unfortunately, that's not the case, right? anything after the query string is ignored by the server. Right? Instead, Express parses it and it makes it available in a different map, right? Not the params map and some other map. So we can get a hold of the message from request query and then message. And then we can message here. Okay? So let's restart that. Stop and rerun. So now there it is. So hello there. Now it's being parsed from the query. Everybody good? All right. Now, typically, you're not going to be returning things that are just plain old strings like we're doing here. Right? The .send allows you to generically send anything you want. Right? So the send function is very powerful. It looks at the parameter, and depending on what the parameter is, it decides what MIME type to use to send it back. Right now, it's just sending it as plain text. Right? If I type in there some HTML, it'll say, oh, this is HTML. Let me send it as HTML MIME type. Okay? Or if I have a JSON, and this some JSON, right? It knows to send it as a JSON MIME type. Okay? So here we might perhaps create an object out of the data that we have, user, and then message, and restart. And there it is. So we have an object that we can build dynamically and send it back. Yes? Yep.
What's the difference between this Node.js and the Tomcat server?
Oh no, this is an alternative of implementing the mean stack. We could have stopped at React, but now we're looking at Angular, right? We could have stayed with Java, but we're using the mean stack, so that we're using Node.js. It's a different stack. Yep.
As in, kind of in the Java server, they implement the J2EE step, so kind of this
Yep.
Node.js, but as in,
Not a spec. It's whatever. It's Express. Express. This is the way Express decided to implement it. If you're not using Express, you can write similar code that does exactly the same thing without Express, but it would be many, many, many more lines of code. It would be exponentially difficult. I'm sorry?
Express is a library for Node.
Yeah. It's by far the most popular library out there. Very much like jQuery. Nobody actually writes JavaScript anymore. They write on top of jQuery, since it abstracts and does a lot of the grunt stuff of handling, a lot of the basic. So same thing here. So nobody actually writes raw Node.js to handle back and forth HTTP. Everybody uses Express because it creates these really nice high-level access to HTTP. Yep. All right. So we can send data across. Let's actually build something a little more interesting.